Welcome to another episode of the Southwest Desert. I am your host, Alan. We will delve into early Southwest Desert pioneering and conflicts with the Mohave Native Americans. Also, we will cover the beginnings of Fort Mojave. If you enjoy this video, leave a like or comment. To continue our Southwest journeys, hit the subscribe button. In 1857, Congress approved $300,000 to build 3 wagon roads connecting the east and west coasts of America. At the time, California newspaper editors complained this was far too little money for the massive project. But the country was divided over slavery, with some states threatening secession. Getting any federal money at all for Western infrastructure was fortunate. Army Lieutenant Edward Fitzgerald Beale was tasked with surveying a route for one of these roads, from Albuquerque to Los Angeles. He was allotted just $50,000 for a 1,500-mile road across barren desert and towering mountains. But Beale had faith the project would succeed. His proposed route followed Old Highway 66, swinging south past Inscription Rock and Zuni Pueblos in New Mexico, then crossing the high deserts of northern Arizona where water and grass could be found. The trail entered Mohave tribal lands along the Colorado River, where the natives guarded the fertile bottomlands and did not welcome outsiders. Seeing the need to protect immigrants who would soon use this road, Beale recommended establishing an army outpost at the river crossing. But action from Washington was slow. A year later, the first wagon train attempted Beale's route, and the consequences were tragic. In spring 1858, a party of men, women, and children left Iowa to try the new Beale Road to California. At Albuquerque, they joined another group, bringing their number to 123 men, 33 women, and 47 children. Their journey grew difficult, with scarce water and grazing. Reaching the Colorado River brought no relief, even though the shining ribbon of water was finally in view after days of thirst. It took 3 more agonizing days down precipitous terrain to actually reach the banks. They made camp in a stand of cottonwoods along the river. But while the immigrants rested, Mohave warriors swam the river and gathered on the far shore, bows held above water. The white travelers noticed, but did not expect real danger from natives with such primitive weapons. Their confidence was grievously misplaced. On August 1, 1858, at noon, the Mohave attackers hidden in the brush let fly a torrent of arrows into the exposed camp. Men scrambled for their rifles while women and children fled to shelter. The surprise was complete. The Mohave killed 8 men from the rear wagons before warriors surfaced to stop the rest from reinforcing their comrades. The immigrants were outmatched, but they put up a bitter defense, fighting for their lives as afternoon wore on. The Mohave finally withdrew at sunset, driving off most of the livestock, their victory complete. Half the immigrants were wounded. With so little left, the pioneers reluctantly retreated towards Albuquerque that night, carrying their casualties and expecting ambush at any moment. Back at the campsite, the Mohaves celebrated by burning the abandoned wagons and supplies. After further deprivation, the tattered remnants of the wagon train finally reached safety. Their terrible experience galvanized public support for Army intervention. By December, mass meetings produced a resolution calling for a military post on the Colorado River to pacify the Mohave. This time, there was no delay. In early 1859, 4 companies of Army infantry embarked by ship for the Colorado River Delta. It was hardly an easy deployment. The ships ran aground. Then soldiers packed into shallow draft paddle wheelers had to slog through 200 miles of shifting sandbars just to reach Fort Yuma. Temperatures over 90 degrees racked the men used to San Francisco's cool climate. They even named their miserable encampment Camp Dirty. Finally, orders arrived to march upriver into Mohave lands. No tents or excess gear came along. Each man hauled his own kit through the barren landscape. The 6th Infantry's veterans mocked the steaming flats near the Colorado as worse than Mexico or Utah. But under experienced mountain guides, David Mackenzie and the famous Joe Walker, they followed the river north, skirting the villages of peaceful Mohave people. Strange glyphs and medicine signs also appeared, possibly meant to hex the soldiers' passage. On April 17th, emissaries from the Mohave tribe arrived, expecting to meet Colonel Hoffman, self-styled Chief of the Tall White Hat. Hoffman informed them he would hold council with their leaders on the 23rd, near Beale's fateful crossing. There, a field of broken wagons and household ruins still lay, including the cottonwood tree where the first emigrant died. It was a charged location for negotiations. On the 23rd, some 500 Mohave gathered as Colonel Hoffman formally raised the U.S. flag for the first time in their lands. A brush arbor kept the sun off attendees. 6 Mohave headmen, including one leader called Kairuk, attended. There was tension as armed soldiers subtly ringed the area, provoking consternation among the natives. The council itself was frustrated by language barriers. An elder of the Yuma tribe played interpreter between English, Spanish, Yuma, and finally Mohave leaders. Colonel Hoffman bluntly threatened destruction upon the Mohave if they continued attacks. They must surrender both the ringleaders responsible for the immigrant attack and members of prominent families as hostages of good behavior. Extreme terms indeed, but the numerically weaker Mohave ultimately acquiesced. 9 of their chiefs went as prisoners to Fort Yuma in irons. This was clearly conquest by intimidation. In subsequent days, the army selected a site for its new outpost, disregarding pleas to instead locate on the far shore. Their reasoning is unclear, but they prioritize proximity to the Emigrant Trail and Colorado River crossing. With raw materials from the floodplain forest, Fort Mojave rose swiftly. But the heat was just as intense as summer came on. Thermometers read 118 degrees in the shade. Duty here was punishment for man and beast alike. The post was operational for just 2 years before events in the East took precedence. In 1861, during the opening months of the Civil War, federal troops were ordered away to protect Southern California from secessionist intrigues. Quickly, the Mohave resumed their former habits of raiding both settlers and travelers. Only in 1863 did soldiers grudgingly return to man Fort Mojave once more. A visitor in 1871 left us a description of this sun-baked sentinel. It is about 7 miles below Hardeeville, close to the Colorado River and hotter than the hinges of any preacher's hell. It is a well-built, clean, comfortable post, and we may suppose far preferable as a summer residence to hell or Fort Yuma, although its occupants claim it is hotter than either of those places. Indeed, Major Pond, the gentlemanly commandant, assured us that he had frequently seen the mercury rise up to stand at 118 degrees in the shade. Surely the troops garrisoning this remote outpost paid heavily in human suffering to realize America's vision of manifest destiny. Their sacrifices brought the first permanent colonial foothold into Mohave tribal lands. While securing vital routes for American commerce and migration, the post also foretold the inevitable decline for the Mohave way of life along their ancestral river valley. We remember the soldiers' endurance, but should also commemorate the price in autonomy paid by Native peoples encountering an irresistible tide of cultural conquest from the East. Few events encapsulate so neatly the costs and benefits of America's march to the Pacific, making Fort Mojave's origins well worth understanding by Western historians and enthusiasts today. I hope you enjoyed this episode on Southwest Desert history. Please leave a like or comment. Hit the subscribe button to join me on more adventures. Happy trails!